I don't think I've ever experienced more of an emotional roller coaster than I just did with this Canada game. Oh my goodness. But hey, the main thing I can take away is that we finally got a win. Welcome back to the World Cup recap, day 8 of the tournament. We go on to the second round of group games as we go straight back to the top, going back to Group A, with things looking interesting, especially in the first match, Czechia against South Africa. Now again, for both these teams coming off a loss in their first game, obviously South Africa losing to the hosts, Czechia losing a nail-biter to South Korea. Both teams are going to need 3 points from this one. It's just no question. And from the jump, it looked like Czechia were right there to get it. They started things off brilliantly with Mikhail Sadalek wasting no time putting his team in front. And from there, it looked like Czechia were just going to control the game as South Africa, once again, were really struggling to get things going. But then something interesting happened. Hugo Broos finally decided to change his philosophy. Instead of going at the 5 at the back, playing conservative, his team went to attack. And finally, we got to see the Bafana football come out. South Africa really taking it to Czechia in that second half, and their prayers were finally answered. They get awarded a penalty late in the game. Tehobo Mokena slots it away. A big goal for South Africa. Unfortunately, neither team were really able to get over the hump in this one. Again, 3 points was much needed for both these teams in this one, because now they're in a position where obviously Czechia is going to take on Mexico, South Africa takes on South Korea. It's going to be pretty hard at this point for both of those teams to get, even one of them to get that third place spot. From what it looks like, it seems like this group is not going to produce one of the 8 third place teams to go to the next round, unless obviously one of them produces a win, which in this case, it's probably more likely going to be Czechia, considering Mexico already pretty much has a spot secured, and even first place is pretty much secure for them as well. But again, fair play to South Africa, and again, fair play to Hugo Broos, who finally changed things up for his team, and it paid off. They outplayed Czechia for most of this game. But again, still a lot of work to do against a South Korea team that we know is going to be hard to break down. We know they're a great team to play against. Mokena was easily the best player on the field today. Shout out to him for getting that penalty once again. And again, considering South Africa already down a couple of players, obviously, from those red cards in the last game, their defense was able to hold things down a lot more, especially after that first goal just 6 minutes in. And again, with Czechia, it still feels like you're lacking something from this team, and in particular, it's that strike force. Patrick Schick in these first 2 games has really not been any bit of effective for them. Likewise at Adam Plozek. Those two are supposed to be the leading force of this Czechia team, scoring bags of goals, especially against a team like South Africa. But that's not what's happened so far for Czechia, and that's easily the big reason why they're not having as much success as many people thought they would in this group. So again, if they want to have any chance of beating Mexico and somehow getting to the knockout stage, they need to get that attack going, because again, having a guy like Patrick Schick supposed to be your leading man, your target man, he was that guy for them in previous international tournaments, in particular Euro 2020. He just hasn't been the same in this World Cup whatsoever. But again, one more game for these teams that obviously all goes down next week. And we'll see, man. We'll see if either one of these teams could pull off that upset and somehow make it to the knockout stages. Now we switch over to Group B, Switzerland against Bosnia. If you are Canada and Qatar, in this case, you were looking at this match very intently. After match day 1, all these teams were tied on 1 point, all with the same results. So this was the chance for either team to really break through in this one. However, once again, things look more of the same for Switzerland. They had opportunities, they could not capitalize them, and once again, Bosnia were just extremely hard to break down. This was looking like another struggle for the Swiss until Murat Yakin called on his substitutes. In this case, it was Ruben Vargas who started the last game, but then this time came off the bench, and Johan Manzambi, who 2 minutes after getting subbed on, finally got Switzerland on the board with a brilliant volley inside the box. Brilliant finish from him, and again, it's exactly the kind of impact that you needed from your substitutes in that position. Fair play to Yakin for making those and getting him on, because he just flipped the switch on this game. From there, Switzerland were really able to open things up, and Bosnia ended up becoming really desperate, to the point where Tyre Mrehanovic made a very untimely tackle. One that, again, just not smart at all. You basically hold back your team for the rest of the game. Bosnia were just done from there. He got sent off. And then again, the substitute coming through once again for Switzerland, Brelon Bolo, holding that ball up brilliantly. I thought for a second he maybe could have passed it off a little bit quicker, but he holds on to it, picks out Ruben Vargas, and he smacks in for 2-0. Just brilliant attacking play from Switzerland. Finally, we got to see that in this game. It only took for Bosnia to go out of 10 men to really be able to see that, but again, cannot come at a better time for them, and they're going to need those goals. And again, the goals just kept coming. Ruben Vargas, great run down the left-hand side, finds Monzambi once again. Just like that, it's 3-0 to Switzerland. I will give Bosnia credit. They did not go down without a fight. Erman Mamic with a brilliant volley. Once again, Bosnia converting off of a set piece. Unfortunately, that goal would be kind of canceled out 4 minutes later. With literally the last seconds of the game, they give up a penalty, and Granit Xhaka, captain of Switzerland, he slots it home. Switzerland back to a 3-goal advantage, a big 3-goal advantage for this group. Again, it was good to see the Switzerland attack finally get things going, but again, it really comes down to all those substitutes made. I guess it does come with a little bit of a grain of salt, considering, yes, most of their great attacking opportunities came when Bosnia were down to 10 men. But regardless, Switzerland off and running now with this win, and it sets them up with a chance to win the group against Canada in the next game. And speaking of that, we got to go to the match that we've all been waiting for, the main event of tonight. Canada against Qatar. I couldn't tell you how nervous I was for this game, in all honesty. I knew, obviously, Qatar heading in, they weren't that strong of a side, but the fact that they were able to hold Switzerland in that much, it was worrying. And again, going back to the last game, Canada's finishing was a bit suspect. But this time, some changes were made. Ali Ahmed was flanking the left-hand side now, which I think was a huge improvement. And Kyle Larin, the goal scorer from last week, he got the start ahead of Tani Oluwase. A decision that paid off in dividends almost straight away. 15 minutes in, Kyle Larin gets the ball once again of a Jonathan David shot that was saved, and he put Canada in front. From there, I just blew a huge sigh of relief, because Qatar, again, they were playing that low block from pretty much minute 1 of this game, and I knew that if Canada were going to get that early opportunity to score, this could be a long, long day. And again, for how important goals are going to be in this group when it comes to potentially deciding this group, which I'll get into that a little bit at the end, every goal in this case counts. I say all this to say that getting that early goal, essentially forcing Qatar to play a little bit more openly and not play so compact with their low block, pretty much just opened this game up for Canada. And with that, the chances just kept on rolling in, and 13 minutes later, the main man, the Iceman, finally got going. Jonathan David putting one in the back of the net. Canada up 2-0. And I talked a lot about Jonathan David last week, but again, for a striker like him, just seeing the ball go in the back of the net, regardless of how it is, right? Whether it's a great goal, not so great, regardless, seeing the ball go in the back of the net changes everything. And from that moment, Jonathan David just never looked back from there. Regardless of what happened last game, regardless of what happened in his season at Juventus, from this moment on, he was back to being Jonathan David. From here, Qatar were just completely opened up. Tejan Buchanan making a great run into the box. He's taken down just outside, but it is the first red card for Qatar. Having Tejan Buchanan just making those runs in behind, he looked a lot better than he did in the last game against Bosnia, where he wasn't really utilized as much, but this time we really saw him, again, making those runs, even being more central a lot of those times as well. And once again, we were able to make Qatar pay late in the first half. Jonathan David once again. That's 2 for him and 3 for Canada as they go into halftime with a brilliant advantage. At this point, I'm just sitting back. Life is good. Everything's going great. Canada is absolutely dominating, and I'm expecting the same thing going into the second half. We even got to see the introduction of Moise Bombito, his first big-time game since returning from that fractured tibia late last year. But then we all know what happens next. Ismail Kone, one of Canada's most important players and someone that's really developed over the last couple of years ever since that first World Cup in 2022. Again, he had a solid game against Bosnia, and he was having a solid game in this one as well, really not letting Qatar do much of anything. But as he was doing what he usually does, holding up the play and trying to advance Canada for another attack, he was fouled. I couldn't even look at the screen when they showed the initial shot of him down on the ground, holding onto his leg, and the realization that his World Cup was over. You have this weird moment, right? I've obviously never been in a position where I've seen something like this, especially to this extent, but I can't even imagine the position that Kone's teammates were in. On one hand, you feel bad for your fallen teammate going down with such a horrific injury that you don't even want to look at that's that bad. And at the same time, you also feel this pimped up emotion that this was caused by a player from the other side, and so you feel this kind of anger and animosity towards them. Well, the foul itself seemed pretty intentful from him. He had no intent of causing the injury that he did. Regardless, terrible, terrible injury for Canada. Terrible for Ismail Kone. He was 45 minutes away from finishing this game and making history along with his teammates, and unfortunately, he couldn't finish this game. And now Canada have to deal with that loss for the rest of this tournament. You obviously wish nothing but the best for Ismail Kone. You hope that He can recover well. Everything goes well. Obviously, I think he went into surgery pretty much right after this happened. And as many have said throughout these last couple of hours, the whole country is with you, Ismail. Now, I know it may seem like in this situation, there's no real good way to transition from it, but in this case, there kind of was. To replace Ismail Kone, Jesse Marsch brought on Nathan Saliba off the bench. And less than 10 minutes after he came on, he gets a chance with a free kick outside the box, a chance to score the first free kick goal in this tournament, and he did. A brilliant curling free kick around the wall. That gave Canada a 4-0 lead. And from there, we got an instant tribute. Saliba holding his hands to make the number 8 and then the jersey on top of it as well. I don't think I've ever seen something like that in football where a player comes on after a horrific injury, immediately scores, and immediately does a tribute. It was such a cool moment, and it really calmed things down, especially from a Canada perspective and from a fan perspective, knowing that this team is behind him. We've got guys that can step up for him, and no matter what happens, we are still on the gas and we are still playing for it. And that is what I absolutely loved about this Canada team in this game, is that even after something like that, they never stopped. They never stopped giving everything they got for this game. Later on, we saw the introduction of Jacob Schaffelberg. He was responsible for the 5th goal. It was go down as an own goal, but still, I'm giving credit to Jacob Schaffelberg for that one, as once again, he's proven himself to step up in big games and big tournaments for Canada. And as if anything could get better, we saw Jonathan David complete the hat trick. What a comeback game from Jonathan David. From everything that's been said about him over this last week about how he's not good enough, he's not Canada's guy, he should be dropped. What a response. A hat trick in this game. This puts him level now with Lionel Messi in the race for the Golden Boot. Now again, I said what I said about Jonathan David last week, and I still stand by everything that I said, because at the end of the day, this did come down to confidence. Jonathan David was not confident heading into this World Cup. Didn't help him in that first game, but in that second game, he saw that ball go in the back of the net. Again, not the prettiest of goals, but what it did, it changed his mindset and it changed him completely. And now he's on top of the world, literally, as Canada take the 6-0 win. What a win for that to be your first ever at the World Cup. And again, huge confidence for everyone on this team. Again, we already talked about Jonathan David in this one, but again, I want to go back to Nathan Saliba as well. He looks like he's going to be the out-and-out replacement for Ismail Kone in that midfield. And from his time in this game, I couldn't have felt better about him. I knew him as a promising player for this Canada team. I know he's going to have a big future ahead of him. I know he's got a big summer move coming this year as well. But man, oh man, he is going to be even more touted with his performance today and going forward throughout the rest of this World Cup. This is a massive opportunity for him. And that's what we kind of have to look at these sort of situations as when it comes to these injuries, right? When you look at even before this tournament with Alphonso Davies being out, Moise Bombito being out, we saw obviously guys like Richie Larea and Luc de Fougerolles step into those spots. And look how big those guys have been so far for this team. And that's what it has to be for Canada. It's a next man up mentality, and Nathan Saliba is the next man up to fill that role. Likewise with Kyle Aaron, even though it was obviously a little bit of a different situation where there wasn't no real injury involved. He was just dropped. But through him coming off the bench, made that impact against Bosnia, and now he's probably secured himself a starting position for the rest of the tournament. And as for Qatar, again, I'm very conflicted. And as far as Assim Madibo, I think he's actually one of the better ones in this situation. The fact that he did go after the game to apologize to the Canadian team. However, I have a problem with Kulan Lopetegui because his actions throughout that incident, and especially at the end of the game, just really rubbed me the wrong way. Look, I get it. In the moment, obviously, Assim Madibo was obviously very remorseful for his actions. He obviously said so after. But the fact that Lopetegui acted like we were straight up just assaulting his players when, in fact, this was the complete opposite. Qatar were the ones that were being very physical, especially in the later parts of this game when the games were already done. Qatar was already finished at this point, and it looked like they weren't going to do anything at all. And once again, at the end of the game, he shares some words with Jesse Marsch. All of a sudden, things get heated again. That's all on him. That all falls on Kulan Lopetegui. Knowing this guy's history, right, with Lopetegui, right, this is the same guy that quit on his home nation the week of the World Cup because he wanted to sign with Real Madrid. This is the kind of guy we are talking about, okay? And I really hope that this is the last time that we see him at the World Cup because again, after what he pulled with Spain in 2018 and now with the Qatar team, I don't understand how this guy moves, man. I just don't get it. But again, I don't want that to take away too much from what we saw from Canada today. Extremely dominant display. And again, this sets them up absolutely perfectly. Their next game is against Switzerland. All they need is a draw, which is easier said than done. I know there's a lot of people, especially Canada fans, that are starting to be like, hey, we can beat Switzerland and this and that. But at the end of the day, despite Switzerland not being at their best, you absolutely cannot underestimate them. We saw what they were capable of today, even against 10 men. They are dangerous. They've got world-class players on their team, whether it's the starting 11 or off the bench. Canada absolutely have to take this game seriously. Whether the mentality is playing for the win, playing for the draw, they got to get things done, and they cannot overestimate Switzerland in this game. At this point for Canada, from here on out, every single passing game in this World Cup is the most important game in their team's history. The Bosnia game obviously was the first World Cup game in Canada. Had a chance to win that one. Obviously they didn't. They did so today against Qatar. Finally their chance to do that, and they did. Now against Switzerland, it's the chance for them to win their group. You do that from there, and you're guaranteed 2 home games in Vancouver. And those 2, again, should they win the first one and go to the second one or whatever the case is, those will be the biggest games in the history of Canadian soccer. Because there's absolutely nothing like playing for your team in the knockout stage of the World Cup. And that is what Canada are pretty much going to be doing. I know it's not like 100% guaranteed, but it's like 99% guaranteed that that's going to happen. It's just a matter of where they'll be when they do it. And preferably, they should be right here at their home. Now on to the last game of the day, Mexico against South Korea. Again, I was very much looking forward to this game between these 2 teams. I saw these 2 teams again as the best teams in this group, and so far that's really been the case. This was a really tight game from both sides. Both teams kept things really compact, especially Mexico. Again, going back to their debut game with their suspensions in hand, they knew they had to play this one a little bit differently. As I predicted, we saw Edson Alvarez come back into the team as a center back for them. And overall, I think Mexico did a great job of shutting down South Korea for the majority of the game. A large portion of that credit I'm giving to Raul Rangel, because man, this guy came up huge, especially at the end of the game. That double save that he made is some of the best stuff that I've seen from this tournament, man, and so crucial for Mexico's chances in this one. But obviously the game was decided in the 50th minute with Luis Romo heading the ball in after a bit of a miscue from South Korea. I know in this case a lot of people have been blaming Sang-Yu Kim, the goalkeeper, for this one, but in my opinion, he did the right thing in that situation. Where he could have done better and where the South Korean team could have done better is someone should have said something, because as a defender, you have to have that awareness that if your goalkeeper is going to make that move and come out to grab the ball, you have to get out of his airspace and let him do that. Unfortunately, the keeper or no one else was able to call that out, and unfortunately led to him spilling the ball and gave Romo that opportunity to put the ball in the back of the net, which he did. So yeah, for as organized of a defense as South Korea we usually know for them to be, that was obviously not the case. That's a mistake that they're definitely going to rue heading out of this one, because apart from that, Mexico really didn't have too many other key opportunities in this one. This could have easily been a 0-0 game. But Mexico obviously being able to take that one, a huge 3 points for them. That makes them the first team in this World Cup that is 100% guaranteed through to the knockout stages. And again, a lot of people were underestimating Mexico into this World Cup. A lot of people were saying that this is the worst Mexico team that they've seen in years. The pressure's going to get to them, but at the end of the day, they always find a way. There was no way that these group of players were going to disappoint that much in front of their home fans. I can imagine the consequences they would have faced if they did that in the first place. They probably would have just redid the whole team if that was the case. But again, Mexico pulled through. Once again, their midfield looked pretty good in this one as well. That's an area that, once again, didn't really see as a big strength for them going into this tournament, but now it's really starting to come alive for them. Edson Alvarez starting at center back. He had an awesome game in this one. But again, like I said, I think both teams are still in a great position to go through in this group. Mexico obviously having the advantage of the goal differential as well. So even if they do drop their last game and South Korea wins, they'll probably still come first in that group. But that is going to be it for day 8 of the World Cup. Again, just a crazy amount of games. And we got even more coming today as well. Obviously, we have Brazil looking to bounce back. The U.S., can they keep up their great form against Australia? So many other things coming from this. Again, it's only getting started, this World Cup, man. We're still in this group stage, but now it's the big part of the group stage where it starts to feel like knockouts, and teams are going in and out and everything's just going crazy. And yeah, the World Cup fever is well and truly set in stone at this point. But again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for daily World Cup content. Let's bring on another day. Day 9 on the way. Let's play football.